Well, thank you, Francie, and thank you all. And DLD sometimes makes you work a little bit. And this session had two titles, if some of you might have noticed. Probably these guys noticed. I did. Maybe none of you did. But in the printed thing, it says navigating the stream. But if you go on the app, which is not that easy, but if you go there, it's called TV and Networks. And it's interesting because if you look at those two titles, I think one of them is taking a stand and the other one is very neutral. TV and Networks is just, okay, we're talking about TV and Networks. But navigating the stream essentially endorses the Reed Hastings view, as he expressed earlier, that everything is moving towards the stream and the traditional model, and I think he said, I wrote it down, networks around the world will convert to internet networks. And yet at the same time, he himself acknowledged there's still 100 million pay TV households in the US, and our YouTube guest just now also more or less said the same thing, that things aren't changing as quickly as some of us might have expected. So the panel represents varying views on that. We do have a very strong representative of the old school in Lutz, who works for Liberty, which is the global mobile, well, they do mobile, but cable network par excellence, and he runs their German operations and also oversees all their mobile stuff globally. And then we have these two internet guys who are doing internet TV. And Jared could talk about a lot of things about HuffPo, but the reason he's up here today as the new CEO of Huffington Post is because they have HuffPo Live, which is a very interesting product. And Jon, who's a longtime tech entrepreneur and leader, as many of you know from Buzzfeed and elsewhere, tremendous impact historically, is now working on a new product that is not launched and is not even really announced, but he's going to talk to us about in great detail, I hope. But maybe I should start, Jon, by asking you, I don't know how much you were able to hear of Reed and...
I heard everything.
You heard everything, okay.
Yeah.
So was there anything that you disagreed with or anything that you were shocked by?
Well, I think television is much worse than they expressed. And
television as it currently exists for the 100 million that pay for it?
I think television in the United States is equivalent to the subprime mortgage market.
Wow, good line. I knew he was going to be good on this panel.
And I just saw The Big Short, and I turned to my wife and I said, wow, this is like television. Let me read you something. This is from a New York Times
you mean
article.
Television is like Wall Street as portrayed in The Big Short?
I'll tell you what I mean. Okay. The median age for CNN viewers is 61, 63 for MSNBC, and 67 for Fox News. That's median ages as reported by the New York Times. I tweeted this out. I tweeted out a New York Times article with this headline. It got 1,100 retweets, including Mark Andreessen, 704 hearts. Why are people so excited by something? There's a cognitive weirdness that's going on where it's terrible.
Yeah.
18 to 24-year-old linear television viewing, as reported by Jason Hirschhorn, who's a very smart guy, is down 37%. 24 to 35 is down 28% over the past 5 years. It's the next newspapers.
Of course, the numbers for ESPN would be quite a bit younger, but still...
I don't think quite a bit.
So what you're saying then is that there's 100 million people still paying for cable in the US, but they're getting something that isn't really that worthwhile, in effect.
I think that when you look at new household formation, they're not getting cable boxes.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's graduating from college now and going to get a cable box. It's a terrible user experience, which is, I think, something that the cable industry underestimates. They think it's about money. People are very happy, even in this economy, to pay hundreds of dollars for iPhones, $8 a month for Netflix, for great products that they want. But the cable guide experience, it's baffling that it's still that bad. And it's because they were monopolists, so they didn't have to compete.
Does anybody in the room think that using cable is easy?
Yeah.
I knew you would raise it. Okay. Oh, one of your colleagues raised his hand also.
Does everybody agree that it's terrible?
Yeah. How many people think using
up?
cable TV is really inconvenient compared to the other things we can do? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, we can just quickly jump to you. Give the defense of that. Why is cable still a good system for ordinary users?
Yeah, thank you for that nice introduction, being old school here on stage. Actually, I don't feel like that. When I was
You're actually
driving
making
here,
real money on the other hand. These guys are just messing around.
when I was driving here, I was listening to the radio. There was a song, and that song was "Video Kills the Radio Star." I don't know, it is from 1980, it's 35 years old. And radio is more alive than ever. So I don't know if we want to sing that old boring song. I'm 10 years on stage, getting that question, is video getting dead or not? Let's talk about the opportunities. And I think, first of all, I think we all agree it's about the consumer, right? It's about the consumer. What does the consumer want? They want to have entertainment, they want to have information, and they want to have communication. And that is really what we are caring for, right? So what we bring to the table is three things. We bring connectivity, right? We spend really billions of euros in our network because all of it, what we are talking about, needs to get to the consumer in a high-quality way. 4K, right, is coming soon. Virtual reality is coming soon. So therefore, huge investments. Second, the consumer wants content, of course, all kind of content. He doesn't care if it's linear, non-linear. Never somebody has shown up in our shop and told us, I want to have internet TV. The consumer simply wants to get what he wants, see what he wants. So therefore, for us, we have to partner with everybody, and it's about partnership. It's about not, I am stronger than you, or you make more money than me. That's all bullshit from the past. It is really, Netflix is on our platform in UK, and we are growing that. YouTube is on our Horizon platform. So therefore, it's about partnership, and at the end, the consumer wants to see it all.
In what way is Netflix on your platform in the UK? I hadn't heard that.
So that is the third thing we are offering. We have to make it easy for the consumer, right? I mean, in Video Explosion, you have to find your stuff, right? And that is for us. We are putting a lot of money in developing our video platform. It's called Horizon. It's both. It's a box, but it's also entirely OTT. You can move all linear channels, and you can move all on-demand stuff when you're on the go. It's rated in App Store with 4 out of 5 stars, and it's growing rapidly. And on that platform in UK, we have Netflix on it, and people are looking at it, and we don't mind. Here in Germany, we don't have Netflix in so far. Why? Because we are cooperating very closely with the broadcaster, with Pro7 Sat.1. And to be frank, I don't want to see American stuff only in Germany and to offer that. We have an industry here in Germany. We have strong broadcasters. Pro7 Sat.1 is a strong German broadcaster. We work together and make it good for the consumer.
So are you saying in your own way, though, that Reed Hastings is right, that networks around the world will all become internet networks? It's just that you will be the owner of one in Germany, or are you saying that
I don't disagree with
some version of the old world?
I don't disagree with Reed in that sense that, of course, global scale is important, and there is global stuff. All of us, we are looking House of Cards or that kind of stuff. But we also want to see, for instance, in Bavaria, there is very nice Bavarian series. Yeah? Or my son is 14 years old. Monday morning, getting to school, for him, it's damn important that he has seen the latest show from Germany's Next Top Model. And he wants to have it, he needs it, he's 14 years, and he wants also to see the making of it. And he gets that on Maxdome. So therefore, my point is, it's not one or the other.
Yeah.
It's getting it together for the consumer. And I agree. I mean, when you have a brick as a platform, you don't have a proper user interface, you rip the customer off, stuff like that, then you will die. But if you're really listening to it and you do it in partnerships with everybody, then you have a growing business.
Yeah, so Jared, jump in here. What's your perspective at HuffPo? What are you building in HuffPo Live, and how do you think it fits into this argument?
Sure, so I'll answer it in reverse order. I think how I think about the world is really at the intersection of how each of the other panelists think about it. And I don't think of the internet as really being a single thing. Of course, we've all seen a massive shift to mobile, and we've also seen a massive shift towards social platforms. And with that, with Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Periscope, and the dozens of other very large-scale platforms are providing an incredible opportunity for content creators to create and publish content in very different ways and different formats. And I think what we're seeing is our audiences are migrating to those platforms. And the challenge that we're trying to figure out is how can we create content that's authentic both at the local level and the global level that plays authentically on each of those other platforms. And in so doing, continue to build our brand. And so for us, it's like, do we think TV is dying? No. Do we think the internet as it was is going to stay the same? No, but we think all of these things are now contributing in a very vibrant ecosystem. And the challenge is like identifying the format that really resonates on each of those platforms and making sure we're there. Huffpost Live, for those of you who don't know what it was essentially taking the linear cable news format and bringing it online and publishing 8 hours of live content each day. And the idea was to bring the conversation of what's happening around the world to an internet audience and invite anyone in the world to sort of contribute to the conversation. So it's professional content mixed in with social content. And what we learned through that experience is that people do like live experiences, and they also want to consume content online. But the idea of 8 hours of live content is a tricky one, because it's not that 8 hours of interesting stuff is happening each and every day. And we're seeing a crystallization of importance and resonance. And so what we're doing at Huffpost Live is transitioning our programming from 8 hours to more ad hoc. When something interesting happening in the world, we'll go live, and otherwise we'll go more produced on each of those platforms.
Okay, so Jon, talk a little bit about what you are working on now, as much as you can tell us.
Sure. So I think there are going to be a whole new set of what I call bundlers. The cable companies will become broadband companies. In fact, they already are broadband companies. That's where their profits are. That's where their growth is. They're all flat in terms of losing subs, or decreasing in terms of losing subs.
In a sense, they're becoming ISPs.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Wolff is in the audience. He did a great job. His report was excellent. There's a lot of themes in that, and the Jason Hirschhorn report also shows a lot of that as well. Now we have these new OTT bundlers. Every single week, there's another entrant into it. You've got Amazon and Netflix, which are active buyers of content in the market. You've got AT&T. You've got AT&T with churn in, right? You've got Roku. You've got Apple, which we know is working on a bundle. Google will inevitably do something in that space as well, too. So there are all these people that are assembling content right now. I believe that in that future, some of the incumbents will cross the chasm, just like they did in terms of going from newspapers to digital. I believe that maybe CNN, maybe MSNBC, maybe Fox News, maybe ESPN, maybe TNT, some of those people will make it, and some of those people will not make it, because they won't be able to make a product which is compelling enough to that young audience, because remember, they've been servicing exclusively 50 and 60-year-old people for the past, however, that's not a joke, David. I mean, that's the number, right?
Well, being one of myself, I'm
and
laughing ruefully.
And I think that in this new world, some of these new OTT, it won't just be House of Cards, it won't just be transparent, it won't just be short form. There will be reboots of all these different types of cable channels, and there will be new entrants. I think if you look at the HuffPost Live experiment, and there's a lot of haters that comment on that, I'd be willing to bet that HuffPost ends up bumping CNN or MSNBC or one of these people. They will bump out of one of these new bundles because they simply will be more experienced and better at creating that version of the product for the younger audience.
So you're saying CNN's real challenge is to become a streaming network that can be bundled by Amazon, in effect.
Just as every newspaper's challenge was to become a website. And there were some that did it great. New York Times did it great. Daily Mail did it great. A bunch didn't. There was new entrants like Buzzfeed and Huffington Post.
Okay, so quickly go to what you're doing, because you're trying to fit right into
So
that.
I think there's a big opportunity in that. And if I was living in the 1980s or 1990s, I'd want to start a cable channel. And effectively, what I want to do and what I'm working on is I'm going to start a cable channel, except it's not going to be on Time Warner or Verizon, although maybe it'll be on Go90, and maybe it'll be on Comcast Watchable. The whole world is going to change, and it's going to be exactly like in the 80s and 90s when Pittman started MTV and those other guys started HBO, and it's all up for grabs. because people that are 20 and 30 years old are not watching any of that stuff which is on the cable system now.
But you're focusing on business and stock stuff.
Well, I'm not going to get into too much. And, you know, we haven't done anything yet. So there's a lot.
You don't want to
done
get into
anything.
anything. Okay, but the idea is you believe that, this thing seems awfully loud, but that in every content area, there is an opportunity to build a on-demand streaming type system that will then become available in a form of a variety of bundles, and there'll be presumably competition in each content area.
And you can and you can bump the incumbents out. So let me give you a perfect example, and this is no inside information, just what I read, okay? Eddie Q from Apple, the reason why the Apple bundle broke down is he went to all the incumbents, and he said, hey, I want your good channels. I want to make a 15-channel bundle. And they said, well, you can't take our good channels. You got to take our shitty channels, too, if you want to do this deal, right? And Eddie Q said, I'm not doing that. I mean, this was in Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal, one of those articles.
It's very Apple.
I can go and I can say, Eddie, take my, after I have something to show him, my channel's much better. It's much younger. And for a fraction of the cost, because I'm a startup and my revenue is zero, give me $7 million next year. I'll be psyched. Those guys won't get out of bed for $7 million. I'll be super happy. When we started doing native advertising at Buzzfeed, the reason why we were successful was everybody said it was stupid and small. So nobody wanted to go into it. We went into it, and we built a big business out of it because everybody else thought it was too small and too stupid. And that's always what the incumbents do.
Do you think that YouTube or Google in another form could become one of those bundlers? Is that something
Spotify, look, Spotify's doing video. I mean, I have a slide where I have 15 possible buyers of content. Some we know are active in the market. Some we believe will go into the market. But you know, whether it's the 4 horsemen or the 15 horsemen or the 15 cats or whatever, they're all going to roll up this content.
Okay. Jared, you used to be at Spotify. Is Spotify a potential distributor for bundled video on-demand services?
Yeah, sure, for the reasons that Jon's saying. And I would say I agree with what Jon's saying about the trends, but the interesting insight that we've had at Huffpost is that the kind of content that you produce for each of those platforms has to be different. So if you look at the 2 fastest growing video platforms in the world, which is Facebook and Snapchat, the videos that work on Facebook are not the same as the videos that work on Snapchat. It's a very different experience.
Right.
And those are clearly not the same things that are produced for Netflix or Apple. And so the real question is, if you're a brand like Huffington Post or any other, and you're getting into this game of where video's going, it's how do you create an experience that authentically plays on each of those platforms? And you have to really choose your bets wisely, because it's very hard to produce for each of those platforms. And you can either go for massive, massive scale and difficult monetization, or you can climb to the top of the pyramid, which is what Jon's saying, which is go to Apple, go to Netflix, and go to the Spotifys of the world and try and get high margin, big deals. But the danger is that a lot of those big platforms are going to want some form of exclusivity, and that's sort of the enemy of scale in a proliferated platform environment. So as a content producer, you really have to think through how you're going to play up and down the content pyramid.
Do you think of what you're doing with HuffPo Live as something that could or should or wants to bump CNN in some of these new bundles?
Sure. I mean, we announced some changes last week at HuffPost Live where we have historically thought of it as a singular monolithic platform, which was live programming 8 hours a day. And the announcements we made last week, which have been somewhat misinterpreted by the press, is that we're shutting down HuffPost Live, which we're very much not doing. Instead, what we're doing is integrating live into our overall video programming strategy. And so there will be a HuffPost Live element that plays on our owned and operated properties, as it always has, but also a live component as it plays on each of those other platforms.
So Lutz, you just described before how in UK you're already building one of these platforms. Would you essentially then predict that ultimately that's what you would be doing in Germany as well?
I have to say that I think you cannot compare the cable market in the States with the European cable market. I think what you have in your head is that companies have the market in the States basically is a pay TV market, right? So people have to pay a lot for pay TV bundles, right? And to get the stuff they want to have, they have to pay for a lot of stuff they don't want. That is not the case in Europe, right? We have to really understand that in Europe it's the other way around. 90% of viewership is on free TV. We have strong public free TV, and we have also strong private free TV. So therefore, only, for instance, the pay TV market here in Germany, it's owned more or less by Sky. It's 4 million out of 80 million inhabitants they are owning, right? So therefore, it's a small market. And therefore, it's not our business model that we have to protect a bill size of a consumer of $120. That is not. The consumer has a bill size with us around, if he gets everything, connectivity, video, and mobility, around 50, 60 euros. That's it, right? So that is number one. And number two, I mean, of course, our next generation platform, we have 4.5 million customers on it. And do I say it's completely the best of the world? No, I don't say that. But I can say that 1,000 of engineers are working, and we get now the version 2 and version 3 and version 4, and we are getting better, and we ask our consumers, and they love it. And so therefore, and we put a lot of effort in, on one hand side, having global content, and on the other hand side, having local content. And for the consumer, both is very important, and therefore, I see us in the race, of course. So therefore, if Huffington Post, if you want to get on our platform, you're highly welcome. If there's an audience interested in you, let's put it to our audience.
The question I ask you, though, is if you think you're going to create one of these bundles, which really is differentiated in the sense that it's on demand. You know, people can watch what they want when they want, as opposed to, you know, a linear model, which is still effectively the main business you have.
But sorry to interrupt you, right? I mean, that was Reed talking to Mr. Kleber before. People are different, right? My parents, yes, they are 60 years old, but they want to see the news. They want to see Kleber at 8 p.m. They do that, it's a habit, right? They do that since 80 years,
no,
or not 80, 30 years.
They are diminishing.
Now, there's others, right? And they see it when they're on the move, right? And so let's offer it to the segment. The kid wants to get it on the move, so let's get it to the kid. But the parents, they want to have it as well. Let's give it in their shape. Okay. And therefore, it's not so black and white for me.
All right. I just want to hear your Jeremiah against local, because you basically think in the U.S. it's insignificant.
Well, I want to answer one other question that you're on right now. I believe that there is a place for live linear for news, and I'll tell you why. That ambient content.
You mean like the kind of thing he's talking about?
Yes, because television is effectively a window on the world. That's what I call it. You turn on TV, the one thing that the linear system does for you is you turn it on and you know that the world hasn't ended. And you know that certain basic things are going on. You turn on Netflix right now, and it's possible that the world ended. There could be a zombie apocalypse, and you turn on Netflix, and nothing has changed on the screen, right? If you turn on CNN, at least you know, like when I wake up in the morning, here, I bet a lot of people put on a cable news type show. These formats need to be rebooted. The content needs to be changed. But there are more and more LCDs being stuck on walls with Chromecast, Apple TVs, and Rokus being connected to it. So there is a place, I think, for that ambient background information.
Right.
Now to answer your question on local. Local's just not a good business. And we live in an increasingly global world where the big stories of the day are global stories and at the very least national stories. Local's not a good business because it takes the scale of the internet and implodes it, right? So whereas you could sell advertising or make something available around the world, like Reed does with Netflix, and then you just change the language, local has even less scale. So it's just an area, and I worked in local at Google, selling AdWords to small businesses. In fact, Jared was the lawyer that did all the contracts for me.
Oh, no wonder you guys know each other so well. Okay.
Which is actually a really funny story. He was so senior, they would barely let me breathe the air of the same room that he was in. But he was nice to me, and they would never do my deals, but I stalked Jared's office, and then he finally did the deals for me. But anyway, it's not a good business.
Yeah, all right. So DLD seems to be very rigorous with their time only for this session. So according to this clock, we don't have tons of time. I guess I wanted to ambush Michael, who was invoked already, just to hear any thoughts that he has, because Michael Wolff is one of the longtime thinkers about this space. So could we get the mic to him, say anything about what you think about what's going to happen with the future of TV, and then let's hear from other questions and comments. Are there any mics anywhere to be had? What happened to the carrying mic person? I guess you just have to shout it out and I'll repeat it, Michael. Well, they're not there, so go ahead. Everything starts with the user. Go on.
So it's hard to explain this without expecting that most Americans are watching Most Americans are watching 40 hours a week of television. The numbers are slightly less in other, it's the same thing in Japan and other countries. In Germany, it's close to 28 hours. So those Americans and those Germans and those Japanese, they're just not getting enough of their diet from one thing or another. They're going to still watch a lot of television. They're going to still watch a lot of internet TV. And yes, ratings are down on linear TV, but those same ratings, a lot of those viewers have already migrated online and they're watching the same programs. There is no Netflix without television. I mean, they can't produce enough House of Cards, by the way, which is a massive budget. And so there's very much a relationship between multiple media, between people watching television, people looking at online.
So you're agreeing with Lutz's video killed the radio star point, which is fine. What do you think about the idea of what these guys are doing, sort of new forms of streaming content that are going to hopefully be bundled with, Amazon? Amazon hasn't been discussed enough, by the way. I hope we'll remedy that.
Well, it's very exciting because new networks are going to be created. If you look at what's happening on YouTube, the creator-led channels, whether it's PewDiePie or if you look at international ones like Me Too TV, what you see is, yes, there's whole new networks that are emerging, but they're going to exist alongside. Now, I disagree with Jon about local. Local's a huge business. A lot of people, once again, let's start with the user. A lot of people want to watch local news. They want to watch local news more than they want to watch national news. And by the way, it's an integral part of people's lives. So I think that we're going to see incredible creators, incredible shows on the internet, and I think we're going to continue to see a lot of interest among viewers on television.
So it's sort of a situation that people are just really getting into video, and they're going to consume it every possible way they can. It is another way of restating what you're talking about, right?
Users are going to continue to consume video. They're going to consume video is going to even be a bigger part of their lives.
So all three of these guys have a great long-term opportunity to continue making tons of money already, make tons of money in the future. How about one quick question from the audience, or I do theoretically have a minute left. Anybody have comment or question? Dominic is shaking his head that even though it says 44 seconds, we have to end. Anyway, so thank you guys, and we could have gone on, but we had a good start of a conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,